Hello and welcome to a karting video. This year I'm competing in the Coast to Country series. Thought I'd make a bit of a video log, a vlog if you will, of my adventures into karting and racing and whatnot. So this is the first round of the series. It takes place at Manning Valley track. I've got a couple of notes here about the track. 650 meters in total, 12 turns, makes the whole circuit. 7 to the left, 5 to the right. This is the anti-clockwise circuit. They do usually run the clockwise track. Previous record approaching this round was a 38.09. That being said, the anti-clockwise circuit nowhere near as run as what the clockwise circuit was. Clockwise circuit's about 37.4 from memory. The Coast to Country series itself, 3 rounds in total. First one being at the Manning Valley track, which we are watching at the moment. Second round in Tamworth, and a third unconfirmed round that was initially selected as Port Macquarie prior to Port Mac pulling out. The class I'll be competing in this year is the 4SS light category, so it's a 4-stroke kart, 137 kilograms in total, driver and kart. And the sessions were laid out as follows. So with today it was a 2 by 8 minute practices, the 6-minute qualifying session which we are currently watching, and 2 10-lap heats followed by a 12-lap heat and a 14-lap final, which took place under lights. It was very cool. It was one of my first experiences of racing under lights. The first time was with an endurance event down at Picton, which was quite fun. So with the qualifying session, watching that at the moment, pretty much go out for 6 minutes, set the fastest lap you can. We'll jump ahead pretty soon to the fastest lap that I set. Alright, and approaching the final corner of the circuit. I want to try and really optimize the exit out of that corner just for this long straight. Unfortunately did have the wrong gearing during the weekend. Very fast sort of initial sector, quite flat out, especially in the 4-stroke karts. A little lift for this corner here. As we come quickly back up the hill, I want to try and get as smooth as you can through here. Nice and tight on the inside, bit of a different line to what you normally run in the clockwise circuit. Probably could have been a bit closer to the apex there. Bit of a later turn in, then you just coming gently off the gas and straight back on at the apex over there. So as we come across the line, we'll see what we do, and it's a 38.089, which does in fact mean that on my first ever qualifying session, I have in fact broken the lap record for 4SS Light in this configuration of the track, so that was really cool. In terms of qualifying, I wasn't quite the quickest. Ben Phillips up ahead of me, a good friend, and he was also definitely quicker, although he did forget to put his transponder on his go-kart for the qualifying session, which did in fact mean I started pole position in my very first race for Heat 1. Which was a very exciting prospect. Quite glad that I did get the lap record as well, or at least for this session at least. It was lowered quite drastically throughout the whole weekend. Alright, and now we're lining up in the pits for, unexplicably, heat number 3. Unfortunately, heat number 1, despite staying in pole position, my fuel pickup decided to brake right before we drove out of the grid, which means I didn't actually start the race, and Heat 2 my GoPro had run out of batteries, so experiencing quite a few issues throughout the whole day. Nonetheless, Heat 3 was quite a decent heat from memory. Couple of quicker guys up ahead. Within the previous heat I did manage to get past 2 of the 4SS heavy guys. Quite good racing amongst those 2. But up ahead we have Ben in the number 34 and Drew Russell as well in the number 57. Both very, very quick guys, very experienced drivers, and they were both competing in the 2-stroke heavy, Drew was competing in the 2-stroke heavy class, Ben was a 2-stroke light class as well. Both ran restrictors during this event. Coming around the warm-up lap, pretty much head out of the grid, do a warm-up lap, form up on the grid, and have a bit of a formation lap as well before the race starts. This was my second ever, proper race start within go-karting, lining up on the inside of the grid with our class, so competing in 4SS light. We were put with the 4SS heavies as well to make up numbers, as well as the senior performance guys, which you can see at the very front over there. About 4 of those drivers. A lot quicker kart than ours, do about 34-35 seconds a lap from memory. So about, give or take, 3 seconds a lap faster than our karts. Important to note as well, Heat 1, they managed to take the lap record back from me. I managed to get back in Heat 2 as well. However, he did also go quicker in Heat 2 as well. Which does in fact mean that he does hold the lap record at the moment with a 37.8, which was quite impressive to watch. Being my first meeting, I was trying to learn as much as I can. Looking at the top there, see the lights go out, and that is race start. Just trying to get on the inside here, managed to lose 1 position to Kurt on the inside to number 9. I stick on the inside and manage to go late off the throttle into the next corner, get past nice and cleanly. Really good racing with him all weekend as well. So at the moment trying to chase up Drew Russell as well. Like I said, very, very quick driver, so just trying to learn as much as I can while I'm behind him. I really need to learn to be a bit more committed, especially into his last corner. That was a pretty good exit, to be fair. It's probably one of the better exits I'd gotten all weekend. It's going to be quick enough actually to go alongside and past in the first turn. Really, really happy with that maneuver. Drew actually sold me the kart, so really, really special to get past him there. So now just mainly focusing on consistent lap times, and that was a shocking corner by me. Missed the apex by a quarter mile, I reckon. Same there as well. Was really struggling with rear grip, especially towards the later sessions. Not quite 100% sure why that was. Probably just a lack of practice. This was my first time running this circuit, this layout. So a couple of mistakes here and there. My consistency certainly needs some work. It's probably the main issue of my driving at the moment is the lack thereof of consistent pace. I know I've got, a bit of pace, decently quick enough to be, leading almost, or at least fighting with Ben every lap, but unfortunately the consistency isn't quite there. Bit of an odd line there as well, running in the middle of the track as opposed to all the way on the right. Usually just want to hang out as far right as you can, lift off the gas ever so slightly, and like I said, get straight back on it as soon as you can. Not dilly-dallying, try and get as much of a quick exit as you can, like I said, especially for that main straight. Unfortunately, I did say in qualifying was running in the wrong setup. Needed to cut a couple of teeth off of my sprocket during the weekend. However, it would have been a bit of a pain to change in between the quali session and the race session. Unfortunately, we had only about 20-30 minutes in between each session, which, did mean we had quite a bit of racing on during the day, which was fantastic. However, didn't have a whole lot of time to get back and check over the things that needed to be checked over. Just going to learn off of Ben ahead as well. Sort of keeping a consistent gap, pulling a bit in the middle sector here, but through a lot more of those technical corners, especially his last corner. Like I've said, I'm just losing too much time on that exit. Miles up ahead. I believe he had slightly better setup than me during the weekend as well, in terms of his gearing. But nonetheless, still very, very similar pace between us on our quickest laps up to this point. Obviously, Ben had the lap record. Just see him ahead, looking down at his rear right tyre. Appears to have some issues, and and he's off into the grass, banished to Shadow Realm. Bit of a loose nut, as we found out, on his rear wheels, which did in fact mean that through enough undulation, the stub axle has actually managed to snap, and that was his race pretty well done and dusted, which means I was leading for my class. I've always struggled sort of with being the lead kart, just trying to keep consistent laps up, you know, driving to the best of my ability, but it's usually a lot easier to follow someone, especially when you're focusing on their line as well as your own. As you can see, a couple of corners back there, just missed that apex in the middle, which I have usually gotten right throughout the day. So actually I was speaking to one of the other 4-stroke drivers at the end of this session, and they did manage to mention that I do turn into a bit of a different driver as I'm leading, and understandably so. I do get significantly more shit. Drew Russell goes up the inside there, so does the number 9 of Kurt. A bit embarrassing. I probably should have been quicker than both of those two, by a couple of tenths at least. I had been throughout the whole day, so it's just a bit rough there to lose so much. I believe at this point I was probably a bit focused on Ben's crash, just sort of trying to keep focus on my own driving, as well as, you know, everything else that's going on around you. Just trying to move out of the way of the senior performance guys at the moment. Blue flags are out. Moved off to the side there. However, I did let one of the other 4-stroke drivers get past as well. So, you know, fantastic initial sort of stage of the race, but definitely just falling back. Pace has definitely fallen off at this point as well. Trying to get back past one of the other 4-stroke guys of Dan right there, letting another senior performance driver pass as well. I believe they had an incident towards the start of the race that put them a bit further back behind the other senior performance guys. If you look on the screen, there are a couple of small dots up ahead. That is actually the 4-stroke class mingling with the other senior performance guys, hoping that these blue flags slow those guys down as well, but I don't have great hopes hanging in towards the final. Obviously, being the third heat is going to decide the grid for the final. See the yellow board on the right there signifying last lap, probably a few seconds down from the next kart in front of me. Overall, not a fantastic session. Heat 2 was certainly a better session in terms of my consistency and speed. You know, really good start to this session, but unfortunately that pace had fallen off towards the end. So as we come back around the final few corners here, Kurt's just up ahead, and as we look to the right, there's the checkered flag signifying the session is over, and time to bring her into the pit lane. Overall, as far as the session goes, not the greatest, like I have been saying. So quite a bit to make up for in this final heat. Starting behind the two 4SS heavies, and Ben starting at the back of the grid due to that stub axle braking much earlier in the race. Alright, and lining up for the final session of the night. This was the 14 lap final. Starting in third position, 4-stroke, first in the 4SS light category. There was only Ben and I racing throughout the weekend, and we were both pretty well close enough to pace with the 4SS heavy guys. Ben was quite quicker than me, but we did both have some early onset issues that did put us back on the back foot a tiny bit. Forming up on our warm-up lap, at this point the track was quite cold, probably about 16 degrees ambient temperature at this point. Did have quite a bit of racing throughout the day, so there is quite a lot of rubber laid out there, but the tyres were struggling quite a bit. And obviously I had been struggling with that rear grip issue throughout the whole day, as well as some strange noises coming from the kart. mostly just like a metallic tang, which you may be able to hear softly in the video at the moment as well. I did eventually find out what that issue was. My exhaust was slowly falling off throughout the whole day, and if it wasn't for a bolt that we had secured on earlier, I probably would have finished this race without an exhaust, as when I pulled into pit lane, the exhaust was practically falling off to the point fire was coming out of the engine, but more on that later. Starting this race, Drew came up to Ben and I at the end, at the start, and we all had a bit of a pack to give each other a bit of a bump draft along this main straight. I wasn't fantastic at it, but I did manage to give him a bit of a push up into past one of the other guys. That being said, Kurt got a bit of a better start and Drew's gone off. He's locked the brakes and off into the shadow realm he goes. That puts me firmly into second place in four stroke. A bit of a moment there actually, approaching that turn, put me offline quite heavily. Really struggling with the rear at this point. Unsure whether that's related to my exhaust creating enough balance or just a complete and utter lack of tire grip entirely due to how cold it is. And also had been about an hour since my last race had occurred. Sort of had quite a few races quite close together initially, and then towards the end with the longer races started to stretch out. They had promised a session under lights, so we did have to wait until nighttime had passed. Coming up around to the final corner, bit of a gap in front and not really feeling all too comfortable with the kart at this stage. As you can see on the left, there goes Ben down my inside. Did let him pass. Wasn't really going to try and fire, more rather follow him and learn more from where my racing is going wrong. Mostly at this stage, probably a bit of fatigue as well, with it being my first event, and having, you know, one 10-lap heat due to me missing the first one, and then a 12-lap heat as well. At this stage I was quite tired. Also had to wake up quite early. Manning Valley is about 3 hours away from where I am, so very early morning to get there by about 7:30. Woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning, so I wasn't performing at my A game. The drive home was also quite tedious as well. Also, I'd like to quickly apologize for the camera quality during this session, with it being nighttime. Found out GoPros don't actually like the dark. Who would have thought? A light receptive camera really needs lights. However, the overhead stadium lights were providing a bit more of a good viewing experience for me in the kart, which is most important. Did have a bit of a scratch in my visor, which was quite annoying. Also, being cold, did experience a tiny bit of fogging. Just managed to flick my visor up a tiny bit, just to allow a bit of airflow underneath. That way, prevented any fogging I could actually see during racing. Quite important, I've discovered. Wouldn't recommend driving blind if you can help it. Blue flag on the right there, or blue light, sorry, meaning the senior performance guys are rapidly approaching. The blue lights in this session wasn't 100% consistent with what had been happening earlier in the day. They were coming at really awkward and early times. I would look behind me and they senior performance drivers would be about a sector or two behind me. So it was really weird that we were getting blue lights already. Nonetheless, it has, I think, slowed up the two drivers in front, which means we are slightly catching towards the end of this race. That being said, Drew obviously on a bit of a charge himself, coming from the back. Dan behind me as well. We're seeing firmly into P3 at the moment. Coming around that middle sector, that double apex, quite an interesting set of corners actually. I didn't really talk about earlier, but it's very much a different line as to what you're taking in the clockwise circuit. I wasn't expecting such a large difference through there. With the clockwise circuit, you do want to try and miss that first initial apex, optimize your run onto that sort of final straight that we're about to go into now. However, you are just coming off of that straight in this layout, which does mean you're trying to, you know, get turned in, hold the minimum speed through the corner as one of the senior performance guys goes past. Pretty well let through there. As we now rapidly approach the other 4-stroke guy, who's trying to let some senior performance drivers past. I'm trying to get past at the same time as well. Just trying to stick to my lines, and one goes on either each side, and whoa, one off into the shadow realm. And that will actually, if the video catches up, bring out the red flag, as you can see on the lights there. So session's been red flagged. It was quite a bit of a serious hit. I did see the full crash. Bit of a spin off into a tire barrier that's off to the right side of the track. Thankfully wasn't injured at all, but was quite a bit of a serious and scary issue. It's sort of at this stage as well that I'm starting to discover my issue. You'll probably hear over the video if it plays. There's two guys standing off to the right side, which you'll probably see in a sec as well, and they were inspecting my car as I was sitting there idling, shooting flames out the top of the engine. So with the red flag, one of two things could happen. One is the session can be resumed again, which I'm unsure if my car were being fit to do so, or the session could be called, which eventually the stewards do make the decision of calling it. Thankfully, a couple of the 4-stroke guys that were doing 2-stroke racing at the same time during the day as well were definitely advocating for that calling. Overall, as far as the first race being sort of went, a lot of lessons learnt, a lot of things did go wrong, but that's all part of the experience, I feel. Not a whole lot really went my way during the day. Definitely experienced a few of the ups and downs, the turmoil of motor racing. It is what it is. Ultimately came out with many more lessons learned. Definitely looking in really good shape for the championship as well. Seeing on about 114 points to Ben's 118. Obviously, with it being just the two of us in the same category. Did also finish second for the heat as well. Got a funny little trophy, so that's hanging up at the moment on my bedside table until I figure out where to put it. Ultimately, that's the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, for my return to YouTube and this channel. Hopefully I'll get some more racing videos up. Hope to do the Picton Endurance event again, possibly a recording there. If there's anything else you'd like to see out of the karting videos, let me know. I was initially going to do a bit more of an edited full day experience and have every session commentated as well in post. However, I thought this more live, relaxed commentary would work better. Let me know how that feels. And other than that, I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you for watching.